Hi everyone, greetings from JagranJosh.com and welcome to this episode of Being CyberWise. Today we have with us Dr. Aunshul Rege, who is the director of the Care Lab at the Temple University in Philadelphia. And she will be talking to us about the romance scam in the context of cybersecurity. She will be seen in conversation with her PhD student, Rachel. I'm sure you're going to find this session very informative and will be able to take away some very important information which will help you protect your digital identity.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel Bleiman. I'm a PhD student working with the Care Lab at Temple University, and I'm here with Dr. Aunshul Rege.
Hi, everybody, and it's such a pleasure to have you join us. Rachel and I are going to be talking about a very important topic today, which is romance scams. So, Rachel, what do you want to know about romance scams?
So let's just start off kind of broad. So what are romance scams? How do they work?
Great question. So, romance scams are essentially a long con, in which someone, a scammer, is going to try to convince you that you are that person's soulmate and they are your soulmate. And they're going to try to serenade you with lots of love and affection. And then at some point, they're going to start having an emergency. So anything like a medical emergency or a travel emergency or a business emergency. And they're going to try to convince you to give them some money to help them out, right? And unfortunately, they're always going to be stuck in that cycle where something wrong just keeps happening to them. And the person that they are in love with wants to help them out. And so they'll continue to send them funds. So a lot of people have lost a lot of money, and we don't talk about this enough, but they've lost their life savings, they have lost their homes, they have lost their pension monies, their retirement funds. So it is a serious problem everywhere in the world. And most people think it's just old people who fall for this. And no, it's everybody. So that's, in a nutshell, what romance scams are.
Right. Yeah, terrible things to happen. So we do a lot with social engineering, and it sounds like social engineering is involved in this. Can you talk a bit about how social engineering is connected to romance scams and even what social engineering is?
Sure. So social engineering is a phrase that is used extensively in cybersecurity to talk about the relevance of the human factor in cyber attacks and cybersecurity. So why do people click on that link in that email that came through, that malicious link? Or why, when someone calls us, you're right, asking for sensitive information, why does that work? Why do people actually give that up? So these are all strategies that fall under this umbrella term called social engineering. And social engineering, if I were to define it, I would say it is a strategy that is used to persuade someone to do something for you that they otherwise could not do, right? That they otherwise would not do. So, and this is not malicious on its own, right? This is something that we all do every day, right? I'm sure you've used social engineering, Rachel.
Sure.
I know I have, but I have a wonderful child who social engineers me all the time. Students social engineer me as well. And this is, how can I get an extension on my assignment? How can I stay up later than my usual bedtime, right? So we've all done it. If you're going out job hunting and you want to, you have an interview lined up, you want to impress your potential employer, you're going to look them up, right? You're going to impress them with how much you know about them. So these are all examples of social engineering. Now, it could be used maliciously. So, and that's where we get into the problem. So there are many, many ways that social engineering can play out. You know some of them. So one of them is authority. So this is where I'm going to pose as someone who is an authority figure. So I could be a professor or your boss or or someone from IT. You could also have, you could also have scarcity. Rachel, you know what that one is. Do you want to go for that one?
Scarcity. Yeah. So offering something that's of value and there's not a lot of it makes people want it.
Absolutely, right? So limited quantities, limited time offers. Then we also have natural inclination to help. This is what makes us human. We hold doors open for each other, or we give up our seat for the elderly on public transit, for instance, right? These are things that make us human. We also have a commitment and consistency. So these are shared goals and objectives and values. So if you and I believe in something, we're more likely to behave in a way that aligns with that value. What else am I missing, Rachel?
Social proof.
Ooh, what's that one?
Social proof. So if you see everyone else around you doing something, you think, oh, it must be okay. I can do it too.
Yeah, right. So these are some examples. Another one is reciprocity. So this is where you do something for someone today, favor, and then tomorrow, hopefully that person returns that favor, right? So these are just some of the examples of social engineering that uses these types of psychological persuasion techniques. So when we look at romance scams, it is very interesting to see how these principles come into play. So for instance, when you create a profile, you need a photo and a bio, right? Who are you? And you're going to write up your bio in a way that is attractive to someone who's reading it, right? So you may pose as an authority figure, a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, right? Whoever it may be. You might tug at people's heartstrings, right? You might say, oh, you know, I have 2 kids, but I'm widowed, right? So now all of a sudden you become someone who values family, right? And someone who has lost a loved one. So someone reading your profile has that shared background as you do, that's likeness commonality. They're more likely to fall for your profile, right? So you can even see social engineering start before the scam has even begun. It's just in the creation of a profile. Then the next step is you're going to initiate contact, right? And this is where I would reach out as a scammer. I would reach out to a potential target and I would say beautiful things like, oh, your profile looks lovely. I just have this feeling that you're my soulmate, things along those lines, right? So you're trying to capture that person's interest and attention. And then you start grooming, which is also known as love bombing. So this is the long time that you spend to develop trust with the person that you're targeting. So you will message each other every single day. You will write love poems. You will send YouTube videos of romantic songs that make you feel like that's, you know, shared emotion. This is how you make me feel. This song made me think of you. You're going to send them chocolates and flowers and things along those lines. And this is endless. So you are just piling this on the person to the point where that person believes that you're the only one that matters, right? It's akin almost to brainwashing. You're really making this person believe you. And this can take anywhere from 6 months to a year, right? This grooming happens for a long, long time. Then right after that, you're going to have some tragedy that happens. So depending on the story you used at the beginning, oh, I'm a doctor working overseas in a developing country to help starving children. The emergency that's going to show up is, oh no, my medical equipment broke. I don't know how to take care of these kids. I have tried all these resources. I just need $2,000. I'm getting $5,000 from someone else, and I have $3,000 of my own. Can you help me out?
And you're so in love that
I know, right? And so what happens is you're getting a couple of things here. It's the natural inclination to help. You want to help this person. This is your soulmate. But then there's also untrue social proof. Because this person has said they've managed to secure some money from somewhere else. We don't know that, but that's what you believe, right? Or that they have some money saved. This person's responsible. They have some savings, right? So why wouldn't I help them out? So you start sending money. Unfortunately, the ass doesn't stop there, right? Because now you sent that money, which helped, but now there's this other problem and this other problem and this other problem, and on it goes until the victim either runs out of money, right? They have no more money to give, or they realize that they've been conned, right? And the scam could end there, or it goes on. And some people have actually been re-victimized or victimized further. So, and this is why it's important, when you're chatting with somebody, don't send them racy photos. Don't send them sensitive images, because that's what they're going to use to blackmail you and release, threaten to release them to adult websites or to your coworkers or your family members. And so now it's a different kind of power dynamic, right? It's still authority because they're in charge. So pay up, otherwise we're going to do this. So there's a lot of that as well. So that's how social engineering plays out in a romance scam.
Really terrible to happen to someone thinking you're in love, losing everything, being scammed. So it's clear there's a lot of social engineering happening in romance scams, and not all social engineering is malicious, like you said, but romance scams definitely are. So who's behind these romance scams?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it could be anybody, really, right? And we have seen examples of individuals engaging in scams, small groups of people. There was even a husband and wife team out in Russia who were conning people. You have larger scam networks, and I'm talking about these are well-oiled machines.
So how do those work?
Yeah. So they have a very strong division of labor, a very good division of labor, right? So they have, they have recruiters who will go out and find people who can type and type really quickly, because I need someone to exchange, do chat exchanges. So you have those. You have organizers. They're going to look at the overall operation and say, okay, this is what we need to do. This is what our game plan is. This is our quota for how much money we need to make, right? So they oversee the whole thing. You have the people who actually execute the scam. So these would be the executors. So these are the people who are blasting out those messages, right? The love bombing messages. They're the ones who will take the phone calls if they want to talk to you. So you have people like that in your group. You could have extenders, right? So they're in charge for expanding the network. And then you also have guardians that protect the network. So these are people, again, if the victim has, realizes that they're being conned and they don't send any money over, that's when they come in and they say, well, we have these images from you, so unless you pay up, right, we're going to do this. So they protect the network. They ensure that the money can, keep coming in. Then you have the money movers. What are you doing with all that money that people are sending you? Well, these are people who track payments and who decide, how should these monies move around? How do we engage in the money laundering process? How do we clean the money, right? So that's their job. You can also have crossovers. So these are people who work for the legitimate sector. They're not part of the actual scam group. Mm-hmm. But what they do, is they can provide you with plane tickets, which may not be real, right? But they may work for a travel agency. And let's say I'm talking to a scammer and I want to say, I want you to come see me. And the scammer says, yep, I'm on it. I just booked my plane tickets. No, they didn't, right? They're working with that crossover who works at the travel agency who's going to give them a sample, a template, if you will, of a plane ticket that I can then show to the person that I'm talking to, so that person believes me, right? because now I've purchased my ticket, but here's an emergency that might come up. I need to get visa done, and there's a payment processing fee, right? So
They've got all their bases covered.
They have all of their bases covered, right? So there is literally a role for all these different parts, and depending on the size of the network, you might have different subgroups that do this, but sometimes there's going to be overlap, so the same person might do different types of roles. So it really depends on the size and the scale of the operation.
So sometimes the people working know each other, sometimes they're separated, it sounds like.
Yeah, that's correct. And that's also a great strategy, because if your group gets exposed, and if they don't know who else is involved, the rest of your network is still intact.
Right.
Yeah.
And so going back to the person whose role it is to do the love bombing and the direct communication, how do they know what to say?
Great question. There have been scam playbooks that have been created, and you may be wondering, what is a scam playbook? What is a playbook? So a playbook is essentially a step-by-step process of what to say, when to say it, what to introduce at which time, all these types of things. So scammers, especially romance scammers, have playbooks that tell them, hey, if you're saying hello for the first time, use content on pages 1 through 4 to introduce yourselves. And here's some catchy phrases that you can use. Then it's, how do you engage in love bombing? So they actually have in this playbook, they will have love poems already typed out that you can copy and paste and send over. Those romantic songs, you don't even have to think about it. Here's, so-and-so singer's romantic song. Send that out today and save this text with it. And they also, in addition to what to say, they also have playbooks that give you these different identities, right? So if you're that doctor in a developing country, this is what you need to say about yourself. If you are in the military and you're serving in a war-torn area, this is what you need to say. And for each of these narratives, they're going to have those emergencies that have been designed according to your role, your persona. So these scam books are so thorough, right? They will tell you exactly what to say, when to say it, when to introduce those unfortunate circumstances, and how much to ask for without sounding greedy and suspicious. So very, very clever, very thorough. It's just like any other business operation.
Yeah, they sound very organized.
They are. Yeah.
So really interesting to hear about the scammers. Going to the point of view of the person that they're scamming, the victim, what are some ways that people can tell that they might be being scammed?
Yeah. There are a lot of telltale signs, right? And this is going to get harder and harder to do as technology advances, but I'll get into that in a little bit. For now, things like, the good old phrase, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is, right? And so if the person's just unbelievably amazing, a red flag should go up, right? Looking for typos and grammatical errors. So that's another one. If they try to get you off to a different platform quickly. So let's say you met on a dating app or a website, and then within a day or two, they ask you to move to, let's say, WhatsApp, right? So the fact that they're moving you away. Love bombing absolutely is a huge sign. This person, if I have a full-time job, Rachel, you have a full-time job, do we really have time to be sending messages constantly? I don't think we do.
Certainly not.
Right? Especially if this is a doctor in a foreign country who is struggling to help children. I don't think that person would have time to engage in love bombing, right? So the fact that they're constantly messaging you, The fact that you get sucked deeper and deeper in, and then you sort of become isolated from your friends and family, right? So also do like a self-check. Have I gone out lately? Have I gone hung out with? Who have I told about this person that I'm speaking with, right? If you aren't telling your friends or family, why not? Right? If they don't want to come and meet you in person, that's a huge one. Right. And this is why the pandemic was so amazing, because scammers use that as an excuse to not be able to meet. Right.
Really help scammers out. Yeah.
Right. And they totally take advantage of current events. So that's exactly what they did, which is why, at least here in the United States, the cost of romance scams, the losses suffered from romance scams skyrocketed, right? 547 million in 2021, and then in 2022, 1.2 billion.
Ooh.
Right? So the idea that they cannot meet you in person, something or the other comes up and they just cannot do that. That's a red flag, right? Refusing. Yeah, go ahead.
The photos or videos even.
Yeah, right. If they don't come on FaceTime, right, real time video conference calling, let's say, that's another sign, right? So there's lots and lots of red flags, and it may not just be like this one-off thing. It's a combination of these things. Now, what happens is, unfortunately, when you're in the thick of it, you're not going to realize these things, right? Most people wonder, well, how could they have been so foolish to fall for something like this? Please do not ever say that of anyone who is a victim or a potential victim of a romance scam, right? Because what we're doing when we say something like that is we're re-victimizing the person, and they're going to be less likely to come and talk to you or report it or seek help, right? So we don't want to do that. But what we do want to do is watch these, their behavior, right? So some people say, well, they should have known better. No, right? There's no person who is immune to being scammed. It just depends on the narrative that is being used, right? So most people also say, oh, victims are older. Yes, they are, for a couple of reasons. One is they have more money saved, so they're great targets, but also because their spouses may have passed away. Their children are grown and out of the house and living their own lives, so they're lonely. And that's exactly what the scammers bank on, is your loneliness, and that you have that beautiful bank account that we're very interested in, right? It doesn't matter, your socioeconomic status doesn't matter, your education level doesn't matter. Some of the brightest and best people out there have been victimized by a romance scam. Doesn't matter if you're a male or female, right? With regards to age, yes, people think it's the elderly. You're right, it is the elderly. But the next most likely group targeted by a romance scam are youth and young adults.
Wow.
Yeah. So no one is immune to this. It's how good is the narrative, and how good have they, how well have they roped you into this?
Right. Yeah, no, it's really important to emphasize that, to not do any victim blaming. It's not their fault. Because like you said, you want people to be able to talk about this, not feel shamed, so that this awareness can spread.
Absolutely.
That's how people can
learn. Also important, because it's only going to get worse.
Right.
As horrible as that sounds, it is.
Yeah. So how is technology advancing to come into play and affect romance scams?
That scares me, Rachel. It really does. So, and you're researching deep fakes, so you know where we're headed with this. But a couple of things, right? So there has been a case here in the United States where a woman was actually talking to a romantic interest of hers who was in the military. And she was aware of all the red flags. And this person obviously could not meet her in person because he was stationed abroad. But he did show up for Skype conversations.
Okay.
In real time. It was him, right? No. So what the scammers did was they pieced together videos of a public-facing military person. They took all of the videos together and they created a deep fake of this military person. And they got him to say what the scammers wanted to say in real time during a Skype conversation.
Wow.
That is scary.
That's terrifying.
Right? So that is, and you know, that, I mean, that one red flag that they wouldn't come, you know, do a video conference with you, is that still a red flag? I don't know. And so the quality wasn't the greatest because, again, deep fakes are still, you know, sort of improving, but they blamed it on poor connections and unstable internet and things like that, right? But deep fakes are very much something to be cognizant of. And it's not just your face, it could be your voice. There's a lot of voice recognition software out there right now that can be used to make you sound however you want to sound. So maybe the person can't always do video conferencing, but they can do a lot more of the phone calls, right? And introduce into that real-time language translation software. You can now engage in conversation in real time in different languages. Also scary.
Yeah.
Also,
no, this all makes it so much harder for people to tell when they're being when they're the victim of a romance scam.
Absolutely. And then we have sort of the deep fake side of things, another manifestation of artificial intelligence, ChatGPT. So a lot of dating apps actually already use ChatGPT to help their online daters come up with catchy taglines and come up with more clever, right? More clever catchphrases to appear attractive to a potential partner. So dating apps are already doing this anyway. Scammers are also using it because now they can get ChatGPT to write grammar, you know, perfect love poems and sentences that are grammatically correct, and make them seem less suspicious. So again, another red flag that is going to kind of disappear. We can't use that anymore, right? So we see these types of things already happening, and it's pretty scary.
Definitely scary. So when you see someone in your life, you know, one of your loved ones, a friend, a family member, and you think they might be being scammed, is there anything that you can do to help?
Also a great question, a very important question. So, and we talked about this just a couple of seconds earlier, right? So one of the things we don't want to do is blame them or shame them, right? If they come to you and they say, hey, I just lost all of my savings, or I've been in a scam, but they have sensitive pictures of me, what do I do? The first thing that you should not do is say, how could you have been so stupid? Never do something like that.
It's not going to solve anything.
No, it's not. You're right. And the person's already feeling horrible and terrible. This messaging, especially from their close, you know, friends or family, people that they trust, is going to hurt, right? So you don't want to say that. You want to give them that safe space where they can come and talk to you. If, you know, you realize your parent, your elderly parent is being conned, right? And they come and talk to you about it. How are you going to talk to them with respect and dignity? Okay, so that's the first thing that you want to do. Oftentimes, if the person is in a scam, they may not realize it, but you may, right? So confrontation is not a good idea because it might make them angry. And that might actually work in the scammer's favor because that person's going to get further isolated. They're going to refuse to talk to you about anything or give you any details. So confrontation is a bad idea, right? Saying that, again, you know, it's like, don't you see what's going on? Instead of doing it that way, gradually inserting yourself into that environment, right? So seeing if you can be a part of this video conference, seeing if you can be part of the chat exchanges that happen, right? To make the person that you think is being conned also trust you. Because they've already trusted the scammer, but how can they also trust you, right? And we're not experts in this, right, Rachel? You and I, we don't do social work. We're not psychologists. We're not psychiatrists. We're not trained to understand and handle victims or potential victims the way that they should be treated. This is where you need to bring in expertise, right? So if you know someone who has that expertise, ask them to come intervene, right? Go talk to your law enforcement, your local law enforcement folks, and see if they can help out. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this, but bottom line, you don't want to shut the victim out. You want to gain their trust. You want to make them feel safe so that they will come and talk to you and tell you what is going on. Because unless we understand that, we're never going to get a full picture, and whatever we say or do is not going to work to help this person out.
Right. And that way, if they're re-victimized, they can still go back, talk to you. They have someone there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you want to make them feel safe. That's your number one thing. Treat them with respect and dignity.
Right. All right. Well, thank you so much, Aunshul, for talking.
Thank you, Rachel. This was fun. I'm actually looking forward to your session.
Yay.
So stay tuned, folks.
Yes. Bye, everyone.